Okay, so everybody got something to drink and something to eat? Good. We are going to continue today's program, and we have now actually come to the next point on the agenda. We will now have the presentation, Milestones, Biggest P2P Platforms, Europe and Future Plans, by the CEO of Mintos, Martins Sulte. Welcome to the stage. And a bit of applause, come on!
Hi everybody, so I'm Martins, I'm from Mentos, and today I'm really gonna touch on about many topics. So I'm gonna talk more about the fintech in general, then I'm gonna delve on what's happening in P2P space in a kind of macro level, and then dig deeper on the Baltics, and also talk of course about the Mintos and what's coming from us in the near future. And bear with us, we are also gonna announce our new product at the end of the presentation. And I guess we're gonna have some time for questions as well, all right? Cool. Anyway, actually I do like Ronald Reagan a lot. So he used to be, or was one of the best communicators. And one of the quotes what I definitely like is that in general what he says that the growth, there's no really limits to the growth, because our kind of limits of the humans are not there. So we have immense intelligence, imagination, and also we are wandering around. And I think that's also is happening in the fintech space and actually in general across the world. So what we experience the world today is so much different than it was even like 10 years ago. Of course it happens like slowly, but if you would look back like 10 years ago, it was very much different world where we were living at. And I actually do like the saying that we overestimate how much is going to change in 2 years, but we very much underestimate how much is going to change in 10 years' time. So there's going to be a lot of change coming up in the near future. And that also, of course, affects financial technologies and how we think about financial services. Fintech is basically the universe of big numbers. So if you look at the numbers, so it is estimated, and of course, be cautious about all of these numbers, so it's only estimations. But in 2018 alone, there were about 110 billion US dollars invested in fintech. It's a lot. And it's growing, so it's been actually up almost double more than double since 2017, and 2019 is no different. And it's also it's a universe of big shifts, so there's many things happening. So what we see is that the mobile is obviously, as expected, taking up a larger and larger share of us dealing with financial services. Obviously, like who wants to go to the bank branches today? So those numbers are dropping, branches are closing, and everybody is obviously experiencing those shifts. And we are investing in technologies as any other tech-driven industries. So artificial intelligence is obviously the one which everyone is very hyped about. And I think it's going to bring great benefits to us as a users, be it us as a users from investor perspective, be it us as a users from borrower perspective, or be it us as a users just as of traditional banking services. So definitely artificial intelligence is going to make our life different. Maybe not that, as I said, maybe we overestimate how much it's going to change in the next 2 years. But in the next 10 years, it's definitely going to be very different world when we think about that. Finance. So what are the effects of those big shifts? Is that we have to adapt and evolve. So there are many actually new industries popping up. The same RegTech. So more and more companies are talking about the compliance. Actually, if you look at all the bank reports, it's the increase in the word compliance used in annual reports has been like 100 times bigger than it was like in 2005. So everybody speaks about compliance. And RegTech is obviously there to help with compliance and regulations and use technology also in that space. What else is happening is, of course, what we see is challenger banks or digital banks. There's like plethora of them today, hundreds of them, and many of us actually today maybe have only bank account in a digital only bank. Traditional banks, they are not disappearing. They have to adapt. It's not easy for them because of number of people they have, of the legacy systems they have, and just the decision making is super slow. But they still do their best. They are expanding in digital banking, and they are obviously are investing in the technology. So actually, the big banks are one of the biggest investors in technology, and we can await for big things from them as well. Fintech is becoming more mature, so maturity in the fintech definitely is that's what we see. So some of the companies are getting really big. They are becoming public, and they are, in a sense, somewhat becoming corporate, which is, of course, the price you have to pay when you get big. And the fintech, whenever I say fintech, we have to, I mean in a much broader sense than just lending or just P2P investments. So fintech is everything which is related to financial services, where the technology helps to make those financial services better. Be it payments, be it asset management, be it your insurance, be it your investments the same, or be it your usual daily banking services. And we see a consolidation. So fintechs and the banks are working together. Long are gone the days when we were very much against the banks. So I think today we have come to the terms that it's not winner takes all market, and the best actual solutions for customers gonna come from working together. So we definitely see partnerships. We see banks investing in fintech companies, and this kind of a rebellion thinking of fintechs has faded away actually in the last few years, definitely. Banks, definitely they evolve and try. So all of the big banks are either opening up the online digital lending arms, say Goldman Sachs with Marcus. It's a huge lender already today in the US. They just entered the UK. Likewise, all the bigs like Citis, JP Morgans, I mean, all of them are not like sleeping. They are investing in blockchains. They are investing in AI. They're thinking about the new product. So that's would be foolish to assume that they are kind of asleep. And many of them are actually innovating in very kind of exciting ways. So one example is, for instance, HSBC, which just came up in Singapore with an account for people with dementia, people with basically disorder. And that's something new, so nobody had done it before. And the reason is that in Singapore, not in Singapore, in Hong Kong, sorry, there's a lot of old people, and a lot of them unfortunately do have dementia. And they came up with an account which actually limits kind of possibility to mismanage your finance because of your kind of disorder. And those things gonna happen. So what I'm trying to say, banks not gonna disappear, they're gonna still be there, they will have to adapt, they are adapting, but it's not easy. And they have plenty of people, legacy systems, decision making is very slow. Then if we move to the fintech, in general, fintech space is definitely expanding. If you look at the world map, so we do have today about, not about actually, to be very precise, the data is from the 25th of April, we have 41 unicorns. So the companies which are privately valued at more than $1 billion US. Most of them are from the US, but we definitely see also some from the Europe, and we always forget, I guess, about Asia. So there's plenty of things happening in Asia, and Asia, if anything, is leapfrogging both Europe and the US in terms of providing new, better customer experience. So we don't have to look that far. If you have ever used WeChat, it's just amazing. Or maybe they are just growing, because basically what we see, those private companies are not actually that keen on becoming public. Only 3 companies in the last year, I guess, did IPO. So they did initial public offering. And the thing is that why so? Is because the companies are really focusing on the growth and on the product. So they want to build the product and best user experience, and they want to grow. And today, actually, the private markets are that good that they can raise money and big amount of money in private markets. Think of, say, the same SoftBank, or SoftBank just invested, for instance, in Wirecard in Germany, like $1 billion billion euro, I guess. So there's definitely private market for those investments which help them to remain private, and they don't have to go public. So actually we've seen a very low number of financial technology companies going public, and that was actually those who went public actually are not in public markets doing that good these days. As I mentioned, yeah, so there's been a lot of investment, and that keeps the fintechs actually private, and it's been growing quite nicely over the years. So we can expect to get, if anything, the growth of investments in fintech space just to accelerate. And there are no limits to growth. I think what has been happening and what we see today is that most of the fintech players, they started with one product. We want to do the thing very good. We're going to focus on our client segment. We're going to provide the best user experience. And they were sort of what you could call monoline businesses, right? So be it Revolut, which started with just a digital wallet, be it Wealthfront in the US, which started as a robo-advisor, or Robinhood, which started with a share brokerage kind of offering. And now they're actually heading to the next pillar, or to the next kind of products which they offer, and they're becoming like multi-threaded. So what they see that they have built up the consumer base, and they can actually offer much more value to them. So, and that's why we see all of them actually expanding to different verticals and adding additional services to what they do. Be it the same Revolut, which now became basically full-fledged digital bank, be it Wealthfront, which from investments ended up actually in lending. So they do margin loan lending. So basically you can use your portfolio in Wealthfront and get a loan with a very, very low interest rate, and you just use your portfolio as a collateral, and you get a great loan from Wealthfront. So all of them are actually, as the fintechs are growing up, they definitely see the customer base is already maturing, meaning that they become fairly big, and that's why they can use those customer bases to offer more products. So that's what's happening in fintech. And in fintech, we're definitely going to see big companies coming up, and some of them perhaps going to service us with very many different products, and we will basically not need a bank at all with many of them because they're going to serve to the client niche of theirs, and basically we're going to have all needs served. So that's number two, fintechs. So first was the banks, not going to go away. They will have to change. Fintechs doing their best to actually provide a great user experience and expanding in product. And then finally, it's the big tech companies, which is very big force, which we maybe sometimes forget. So if you look at Amazon, they have been super active in financial services already. So they have actually done most of the offering themselves. It's hard to comprehend that Amazon will become like a full-fledged bank. I really doubt so, but they're definitely going to do their best to actually build financial services around their ecosystem so that the people and players stay in their ecosystem and they don't have to use any other service. So if you look at Amazon, it's everything from your Amazon Pay to your Amazon Lending. Who knew that Amazon Lending going to be the biggest SME lender actually today? So they are lending billions and billions of US dollars every month. And they're not stopping. So Amazon is obviously forced to be taken kind of in note. And they've been doing many, many things. And I think they're going to conquer even more. So like who knew when they started that they're going to be launching in the space and competing with Elon Musk and the other guys, or who knew that they're going to be in AWS and do those things. So we definitely should look after them when it comes also to the financial services. So we can expect big things from Amazon, but this is just example. The same is going on in Google. So believe me, they are not sleeping as well. They know it's a big market. If you look at the Facebook, they just launched the new team building in the London. So and they just announced that in 2020 they're gonna try to launch a global coin, which is based on the blockchain. So basically, imagine what it means for us here or everyone in the actually using the 2 billion plus people using the Facebook if they get a new currency which they can exchange. So I think in 10 years time it's going to be massively different than we see today. That's on the macro space. So basically a lot of things happening in financial services. Banks not still going to be there. We will need them. Fintechs doing a great job on user experience, and then the tech companies using their big networks and big distribution, and definitely working on the financial products. So what's happening in P2P space, which if we narrow down a bit more on what we are here for today. In P2P space, basically what we see is a quite sizable market already today. So the latest data which we have is about like 25-30 billion euro industry, but it's expected to grow massively, and it's continue growing. By the 2024, it's expected to reach almost $1 trillion US dollars, but that's of course across the whole globe. So the market is definitely maturing, and that's what we also see here in Europe. But as a Mintos, we work globally, so we see it basically everywhere. So the same in Southeast Asia. We were there like 2 years ago. Nothing was happening. We went. We are now much more active in Indonesia, and suddenly we have like 120 alternative lending companies in Indonesia alone. It's a massive market. But obviously in the P2P, there's also a black hole. The things which we have to acknowledge. Some of the players are collapsing, unfortunately. Some of them bigger, some of them smaller. So the recent case was of the Lendi. Although it was not like a big news, it was brewing already for a few years. And definitely those things happen, and we have to be kind of cautious of them and kind of learn from those things. I think what we can learn from those things is that in P2P investments, it's really many things which matter, but I would say that most of all it comes down about the trust and transparency, being transparent and basically building trust with investors. It's also about the compliance, so all the compliance with the current regulations, with upcoming regulations, having a proper legal framework in place, providing perfect service, and just being open to feedback. So we get a lot of feedback from investors, and obviously we build the product for investors, so the feedback is invaluable. And if anything, the most important is really people. It's all about the people who are on the team, and that's why, for instance, at the Mintos, it's always been since day one, we have adopted the framework of people, product, profit. Great people, gonna build a great product, which is gonna only then bring great profits. And I believe that it all comes down to the people. And obviously, as an investor, and also the borrowers, we should do our due diligence on any platform. Again, when we narrow even more down and we come to the Baltics, so many people are actually, I mean, we are operating in 30 different countries from the lending perspective, from the kind of loan supply side. Whenever we go to some other countries, people say, well, why so many people, why so many fintechs from the Baltics? And that's one more common misconception which we see is that the Baltic platforms, and including us, perhaps Mintos, we are kind of put that we work in the Baltics and so forth. But actually, Baltics is a very tiny part of our business. So from investor side, say Latvia is only 5% of our investors. The Baltics is only 15% of our investor base. So most of it is basically we sit here in the Baltics. It's a great place to be at, but most of the business is outside of the Baltics. It was one of the largest, because we are so much exporting, so it was one of the largest markets in the continental Europe. It's growing very much, and Latvia obviously has been also to some extent because we launched and have had great traction, has seen a tremendous growth rate. Why so? It's because we very much focus on what has made the Baltics a big, is that compared to other countries, actually in the Baltics, if this is our kind of, in the Baltics, the cost base, in the Baltics people actually do focus a lot on IT. So if you would compare to other regions, IT definitely takes much lower share. So in the Baltics, IT is a like very big part of total costs, and that means that we build a great product. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Baltics has been that big, is that we actually do invest quite a lot in technology. We do have a good talent available here for reasonable money, which means again that if we invest a lot and we get actually relatively even more people and relatively kind of good quality, then we can build a very great product. Yeah, well, this is about ID expenses, and from day one we think about internationalization, so being global. The same with Mintos. From day one it was never a question, do we want to build a platform for Latvia, for the Baltics? It always was either we build it global or we're not going to build it at all. So from day one it was like everything was in English, German, Russian, Latvian, like multi-language. It was about thinking where we can sort of, instead of thinking about the countries where we can go to, it's about like regions or more like continents where we can go to and so forth. So basically that also brings us to the fact that there's a lot of international customers using our marketplace. So as I mentioned, like for the same Mintos, so about 85% of our investor base is outside of the Baltics. And obviously the markets have grown a bit, so if you talk about Mintos, so we have contributed our share as well. So if you look at Latvia, those numbers when we launched, which is 2015, and definitely it has grown significantly until 2017. But actually, it will be interesting to see 2018 because it will be massive increase in the numbers there. So about Mintos, most of you perhaps know about us a bit. So basically, we are global player, the largest in the Europe actually today. So far we have facilitated close to 2.5 billion euros of loans. Today we have about 150,000 investors coming from 70 plus different countries, and you can invest on Mintos in loans from 30 different countries. So we give you unparalleled opportunity to diversify. So you can build like super diversified portfolio, start very small, and earn great returns while minimizing the risk because of diversification. So if anything, when people ask about what to do on Mintos, what I say is just diversify, diversify, diversify. Nothing beats diversification when it comes to investment, and also the same comes in general about investment. So in general, perhaps when people invest, they should also diversify across different asset classes and not only invest in P2P investment. That's about like current situation, but perhaps the most interesting is about the future. What holds us for us in the future? Based on what we have learned so far, obviously what we are kind of our reference point is definitely what's happening in fintech space in general. So what we are doing now as a Mintos, so we are also going from this kind of first product, first beachfront, and now expanding into other products and offering more value to our clients, our investors. And that also holds us for the future. So some of the work in progress which we have is we are working on providing investors an IBAN account or providing a bank account number. That's basically going to be your usual regular bank account number. So instead of transferring money from your bank to Mintos and then transferring back to your bank and then getting access to it, you will have access to your money on Mintos account and will be able to use it as any regular bank account number. Then we are also working on on top of that, we're gonna add a Mintos debit card so that you can access even the money even faster. So if you go to your whatever grocery shop or you want to buy something on internet, you can do it straight away from your Mintos investor account or Mintos account instead of like transferring it to your traditional bank account. Which obviously leads to the question like, will you need your traditional bank account at all? So That's a good question. Most likely, it's a paradigm shift. It's going to take time, but eventually, I think many of us are going to realize that we don't need any other kind of traditional provider of financial services. This year, and this is coming already end of this year, most likely, maybe early next year. Let's see how fast we can execute on that. But very soon we're gonna launch a mobile app. Finally, it's been 4 years and we managed to go without mobile app. But this fall in September, October, or maybe November, we're gonna launch a mobile app. This is actually first sneak peek in the app. So this is very first kind of prototype. And we are very much welcome your feedback. So my invitation is for you, if you want to give your feedback about and see your mobile app, our mobile app firsthand, just go to our booth after the presentation, and we have Eva and other people from the mobile app team who would be happy to take your product and show you what is the app capable of doing today. And obviously the app we are building for you guys, for investors. So your feedback is very much appreciated. And then we come down to the new product. So what is a new product? What is Invest&Access? So we've been thinking quite a lot, so how to improve the investing experience at Mintos. And obviously today, we started with manual investing only. So then we added the auto invest, then we added for primary market, then we added auto invest for the secondary market. Today, if you would go on the Mentos, then to set up auto invest actually takes quite a bit of time and effort, but you are rewarded with the great returns. And actually, today, 85% of investors are using auto invest. Only 15% of investors do manual investing, and 85% use auto invest. And that means that we see that investors want actually much easier investment experience, but they also do want much better access to capital, much better access to the money which they have invested in loans. And today, of course, you can sell it on secondary market, but what we have come up with is a product called Invest&Access, and we are now simplifying also the way how you can access the money. How it's going to work, it's actually super easy. It's a few clicks, you get in easy, you just set up how much you want to invest in Invest&Access. It's invest across the whole platform, across the whole loans. But there are some parameters, so it's only in the loans from the lending companies which has been on the Mentos for at least 6 months. So we don't allow like new lending companies on the Invest&Access. And it's only loans which come with a buyback guarantee. So it's only buyback guarantee loans. And that gives you like the best diversification possible. It rebalances every day. So every day is going to be adjusted. And all the money, if you want, will be reinvested automatically. So it's super like hands-free experience for investors. But the greatest part is that you can get out easy. So you can actually cash out instantly. If you want to access your money, in the loans which are current, you can cash out it immediately. Obviously subject to market demand, but in general, like we expect that in 99% of cases it's going to be instantly, and you will get your money straight away. So you won't need to anymore to think about secondary market, selling on secondary market, discounts, and so forth. So it's all super simple. One click to invest, and one click to actually withdraw money instantly. And on top of that is obviously the security is one of the things which we focus on. So it's the best diversification you can get on Mintos. It's only loans with a buyback guarantee, and this is a sneak peek in how it's going to look. The rates are the same. So basically, you get the same weighted average rate on the Mintos platform, and you see nicely across how many loans you have been invested in. And it's actually going to be ahead of others. So it's going to, when the loan is placed on the marketplace, first Invest&Access is going to check and invest in those loans. So it's going to be even ahead of auto invest. So first going to be Invest&Access, then auto invest, and then manual investing. And still great returns, which you have been used to at Mintos and have seen so far. If you want to learn more about our new product, Invest&Access, which we are very excited about, definitely come by to our booth. So we're going to definitely tell you more. We're going to launch it on Monday, on June 10. So be with us, and that's perhaps ends my presentation today. So I'm super happy to take any questions, and I guess throw the microphone around a bit.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yep. There you go.
Hi, Alexander from Czech Republic. Just to ask for the last future, if you have already a portfolio right now, it means that all the value is coming to the new portfolio. You can move it there, or just with the new investments, you can create another portfolio like the Invest&Access, or how it will work?
Yeah, it's you basically have to create a new portfolio. So that's how it's going to work. So it's basically instead of building now a new auto invest, you can just click, get Invest&Access, and it's going to invest across. I think today's 40 something applicable loan originators, or well, loans from 40 plus applicable loan originators.
Hi, Christian from Estonia. I've been investing on P2P platforms from 2011, and my question is related to regulations. And as we speak currently, across 7 European markets, there are major regulations happening, pushing lenders towards more near-prime solutions. But the transition actually hasn't been good for the lenders towards near-prime. I'm speaking mainly about short-term lenders. So even in Latvia, new regulation is coming, Finland, Poland, so forth, and this is affecting majorly most of the lenders on your platform as well who are in short-term credit. So as an investor, do you plan in the future to maybe give some more information about upcoming regulations on different markets to investors to make better decisions, or how much you are following them yourself, because lenders often tend to interpret the regulations in their favor? Thank you.
Thanks. That's a good question. About the regulations, so obviously they are changing. That's like part of life. What we see though, actually, that the short-term lenders on our marketplace is actually only 20%, so it's not majority, so it's only 20% is like short-term. And they are adapting. Obviously, it's not like as easy as you say, so it takes time, because of course when you go in installment, it's a whole different product, it's much longer term, it's much more kind of bigger amounts, so you need a different approach to your funding sources, so you need also a bit different way of assessing the borrower. So there are many things which actually are fairly different from the short-term lenders. What we see though, actually, that this is happening. I mean, it's at the end that the short-term lenders, or in general, the lending gonna be more kind of bank-like lending anyway. So the short-term lending is prohibited, or at least there are some ceilings put on it. Be it if we take the same example of Georgia, so basically now it's non-existent, or the same, I don't know, the UK also is a good example of that. But the alternative lending space is much, much broader than that. So it's not only short-term lending. So maybe this is an impression which we have here in the Baltics, because we have only mainly short-term lenders, but we work across 30 different countries. So when we talk about alternative lending, it's anything from small business loans to car loans to invoice financing to installment-based loans to your credit card loan. I mean, it's a plethora of different kind of alternative lending solutions, right? And your question about regulation, so we hear it firsthand usually, because I mean, we have a lot of relationships. So today, actually, just for the meet and greet day yesterday, we counted how many relationships we have with the lending company. In total, we have actually around 1,000 relationships with 1,000 lending companies across the globe. So in each of the markets, we actually know most of the players, and of course they talk a lot. And if anything, the rumors are the first. We are the first to hear any rumors what are on the market. Can we update on those regulation changes? Yes and no. Of course, we can update on kind of rumors, but regulation is only when it's really in effect, then it's really in effect. And we've seen it across so many different countries that what's been rumored before is not actually what is adopted afterwards.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you for your speech. I have a question about your new product. Mainly I'm interested in instant withdrawal, how it works. I mean, when the system buys a loan for me, yes, and I decide to withdraw it. Who buy the loan from me?
It's the other investors who are coming into the product, so we are on your behalf actually selling it to other investors who are coming into the product, and then we as Mintos are also operating as kind of a market maker, and we could actually help with the liquidity as well. So, but in general, like it's to other investors who are coming into the product. It's the same as you sell to secondary market. We are just automated it and made it much easier for you.
Okay, thank you.
Nice one.
Good catch.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Hans from Germany, and thank you for your talk. It was very interesting, and you showed your that you will implement an application for iOS or Google, and I'm interested, as yesterday, in the API. Will this be an open API for programmers, or will it be closed and only usable with the application?
Initially, it will be more or less closed, so we're gonna keep it to ourselves. But then we see ourselves opening up, perhaps to other kind of solutions as well, which then could build on top of what we do. But for the time being, it definitely would be closed.
Okay, thanks.
This working? Yep. So you had a really cool slide on overall expenditure in Mintos. Would you like to detail a bit on the security/cybersecurity expenditure? What is Mintos actually doing in that area?
Yeah, cybersecurity is a very big thing actually across, I think, technology in general. I think in general, technology companies tend to underinvest in cybersecurity. So what we do specifically is, I think first and foremost, it is deep down in your culture. Actually, that's the best you can have. You can invest as much as you want, but actually it's about the culture and being kind of diligent about the security. And we have it in our culture from day one. So the same, I don't know, Chief Technology Officer, if anything, he's the most paranoid guy I know about security, so like super paranoid. And then he even doesn't allow me to connect to public Wi-Fi, so I have to go through my kind of VPNs. Then what we do is just invest in the team, so it's basically the same engineering team. Of course, it's also part of like cybersecurity, and then if we talk about security in general, of course, it's also part of it is about legal stuff as well. So we just invest in teams. So I would say it's two things. It's first like culture itself, and then investing in team, and then of course on top of that you add your solutions. So some of you might maybe seen that there are some timeouts when you try to log in too many times, and that's like a typical solution which you use against kind of too aggressive kind of attacks on your website. So culture, well, I think I lost culture, people, and then some tools on top of that.
Sounds good, thanks.
Hello, my name is Carlos from Portugal. Can you comment a little bit about what will be the future of the peer-to-peer platforms from a business perspective? We are seeing a growing number of platforms, and I would expect that in the future there will be some consolidation. Do you see, for example, traditional banks approaching these type of platforms to integrate them into their service platforms? What is your input on this area?
I think then the question is really how you define a P2P platform, and I'm going to use kind of my definition. And of a P2P platform, I would say that's if you can say so these days, like a typical true P2P platform which both sort the borrowers and sort the lenders. If you ask me, I'm not a big fan of those because I think loan origination and working with investors are two very separate businesses, and it's very hard to do both of them very good. So I'm not too big fan of those platforms in general. And for them, most likely the consolidation doesn't make also much sense because there's a little kind of synergies they can have when merging with other players. But where we work at is a broader space. I would even say it's kind of, maybe today we can define it as alternative lending space, so everything which is related to lending outside of the banks. But in the future it could be also working with the banks, because also today we have been talking with a few banks who would want to offload their loan books through the Mintos marketplace and sell to investors to manage their capital ratios and to actually get us access to funding. So if we talk about alternative lending space, definitely we might see some consolidation, bigger players acquiring smaller players, and that happens like every now and then. But again, there's not that much synergy actually there, so many of them are still focusing on specific verticals, and I would say in this alternative lending space, the deals which gonna be more kind of low profile, and they have happened before, so bigger players acquiring some player in the local market just to be in that market instead of opening up themselves, but on kind of international level, I doubt. It's similar to kind of the banks in general, so banks also these days we don't see that often that they are merging. Sometimes they try, but well, Deutsche Bank and Commerzbank tried for what, like half a year, didn't work out. So let's see. So there's definitely room for consolidation, but I don't expect to have like some consolidation. I think one last question. Eh?
Hi, my name is Oliver from Germany. You mentioned today that you try to launch a debit card soon. So could you please let us know more about your strategic plan? So are you planning to develop more in terms of a pure retail bank, a primary bank? Because N26 and Revolut are already very strong. Is there a plan behind that?
Our plan is really to cater to our client segment, and those are the people who want to save and invest. And I would argue that's a different client segment to the banks you mentioned too. So we're going to cater to those, and we see this is just a natural kind of extension of what we do to make our product easier and kind of valuable to our customers. And the card is actually a super simple way for you to access the money, which is now sitting on the Mintos account. Like today you have to go on Mintos, you have to transfer to bank account, you have to kind of have a card attached to this bank account, and then you only can use it in your grocery. Why do you need that? So basically you just have Mintos card, you just use it wherever you want to use it. And with Invest&Access you can get the instant access to all the money which you have invested. So all the money is all the time working. And that's basically what our strategy is, more to cater to our investor base instead of going like super broad retail based market. Anyway, that's it from my side. It was fantastic having you here. We did our best to bring a great weather. So if you come to Riga, it's actually all year long like this, so it's fantastic weather every day here. It's great to see you face to face. We are definitely here. I'm going to be here for quite a while, so if you go to our booth, we are happy to hear your feedback about our mobile app and also tell you more about Invest&Access. Other than that, enjoy the conference and have fun.
Thank you so much, Martins. Thank you. I certainly learned a lot, and we shall continue to both learn and grow our brains. But now, people, we shall enjoy some lunch. Please. We'll see you back here in about 40 minutes, okay? Enjoy.